today. She's got an appointment, so I'm stepping in just to introduce our guests and welcome everyone. I'm happy to have Jennifer Brush, who's the host of this series on brain health with us. And we are happy to have Mandy with us as well, who's going to be talking today with all of us. But as before we get started with that, I just want to remind people that you can type questions and comments into the chat, and we'll be monitoring that to try to incorporate your questions and comments. And also we'll be leaving time at the end to answer your questions as well. But you can also put your camera, your screen in speaker view, and you'll be able to see just the person that's talking, as well as the slides that are being presented this morning. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jen, and I will quietly slip into the background and let you both take over.
All right. Thanks, Lynn. Good
You're
morning,
welcome. Thank
everybody.
you.
It's good to have everybody here today. If you're new to the Brain Health series, I'm Jennifer Brush. I am from Chardon, Ohio, and I have a consulting and research firm called Brush Development. We specialize in education and research in the area of dementia. And I've been working with Kendal at home, I think for about at least 10 years now, helping to support the Kendal at home members who have cognitive impairment and to support their families and their care partners as well. We've been having a great brain health series. We've talked about a number of topics. If you were here last week, we had the Ohio Council for Cognitive Health talk about the Dementia Friends program and go through a Dementia Friends session. And today I have one of my team members, Mandy Cheskis, here with me. And we are going to be talking about things that you can do to support memory, specifically creating memory centers in your home and creating memory books. So before we get started, I'm going to just pass this over to Mandy to let her introduce herself to all of you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Again, my name is Mandy Cescus, and I'm a speech language pathologist. I've been working with elders probably about 28 years. And although I've worked as a speech language pathologist also with children and different ages, I just love working with elders. And I specifically love working with dementia and making connections so that people can continue to communicate, continue to thrive, and continue to live the best quality of life, whether it is at home or whether it's living in a care community. And I'm just thrilled to be part of the Brush Development consulting team. And I'm really excited to be here with you today to talk about memory aids that you can do at home. So thank you for inviting me.
All right, thank you. So let's get started here. We're going to talk about setting up a memory center in your home. We'll also talk about how and why you would want to make a memory book with or for someone, and then how you can use memory books to connect with other people. We all need the right tools. We use tools to help us compensate for our challenges. And tools like hearing aids, glasses, walkers, these help us improve our quality of life. People with dementia need tools to support their memory. We have different types of memory. As we've talked about in some of the other sessions, not all memory systems are impaired equally in dementia. And one skill that is preserved long through the course of dementia is reading. Reading uses a memory system called procedural memory. Procedural memory are things that are habits and skills that are overly learned, and things that are very automatic. And this is an area of the brain, again, that's preserved long through the course of dementia. So what we try and do with some of these memory supports that we're going to talk about today is use individuals' preserved abilities to compensate for some of the deficits that they do have. We can use visual cues to improve independence. We use different types of visual cues in the environment to help people find their way or to orient them to time or place. We can help them use cues to complete their daily routine, to participate in different activities, and even to communicate with one another. This is an example here of an activity center that is set up in a care community that cues a person or invites them to work. There's tools to put together a birdhouse. There's all the supplies that they need. They see that area and they can come and sit down and work on a project. You can do the same type of thing in your home. You know, we all like to have something really meaningful to do during the day. We like to have work that gives us satisfaction, that makes us feel good, that makes us feel productive. And but people with dementia often lack that initiation to start a new project, or they might even forget where the tools and supplies are to do a project like that. So a very simple way of helping someone that you live with that has dementia would be setting up an area in your home, a workstation, a card table, a project area in the kitchen or in a room that's not used very often, where you can leave out the supplies. You could leave out a large puzzle. You could leave out projects that are ongoing. And so the person can go throughout the day and work on those, or the two of you can work on them together. So we talk about cueing, but a cue is really just it could be visual, it could be tactile, it's something that's sensory, it could be a smell, a signal or message, a hint that triggers a pattern of behavior in someone. So a cue could be even something like warm bread that's baking in the oven. That would be a sensory cue. And people with dementia are able to respond to cues quite easily in the environment. So a lot of our talk today is going to be talking about how we're setting up those cues. Here's a visual cue that reminds someone to help themselves to a drink or a snack. It's actually a magnet that we've placed on someone's refrigerator. Sometimes people with dementia don't remember to drink or eat during the day. We'll put signs in care communities to help people find their way. Sometimes we'll use signs in the home setting as well to help people locate the bathroom, to help them locate items in the kitchen. Okay. When we support memory, we often create an area of the house that's a memory center, so that the person knows where to go to look for important information. Often people with dementia will experience a sense of anxiety when they don't know what's happening next or where they can look to find out information that they don't remember. So a memory center can create a sense of security. It can reduce anxiety. It also can create independence. The person will rely less on their spouse and be able to rely more on themselves. So we're going to get started by using pictures, words, maybe auditory reminders to compensate for memory loss and help them focus on what they can do. And we don't want to focus on what people can no longer do or what they need help with. We want to really focus on everything that person is capable of doing. So the first thing that you want to do is choose a place that's in a central, frequently used location. For a lot of people, that's a kitchen. It could be a den, a family room, an office area, but you want to choose a place where you can have a small table or an area of the counter that can be specifically used for the memory center. Next, you want to clear out any clutter. There shouldn't be anything there except for what's intentionally placed to create the memory center. So all of those piles of mail, stacks of magazines, old receipts, takeout menus, they're going to be very distracting and confusing to the person. If those are things that you need and look at and rely on, we'll organize them. But what you really want to do first is just just move everything, so you have a clean slate to work with. Next, you want a large, easy to read clock. For some people that's digital, other people it would be an analog clock on the wall, a height that's easy to see. Don't use an analog clock that has Roman numerals. Use Arabic numbers, because Roman numerals are hard for people to read. Likewise, this is the best little icon I found as a clock. It's also a really good example of what not to use, because there's no numbers here. There's just little dots. It's going to be confusing for someone to read. If you aren't sure whether to pick a digital or analog clock, pick the type of clock that the person is accustomed to using. I really like the clocks that are digital, that have the day of the week and the month. Sometimes they have the weather or the season. It'll say, February 3rd, 12 o'clock, and it will say, whether it's the season. Sometimes it'll have something to print out for the weather. There's different versions of those clocks. It'll say afternoon or morning and evening instead of AM and PM. And those are readily available online. I think they help a lot. There also are some clocks that you can actually program messages and program reminders. Okay, next, on the table or the counter, you want a very simple, large print desk calendar with minimal designs or pictures. Okay. I know we want things to look nice, but when there's all sorts of designs and other things on the calendar, it's distracting. So just those large desktop calendars. Or you could use a memo board with a dry erase surface that already has a place for a calendar, notes, and a daily schedule. You want to place some pens, a lined notepad, a large one, not a little sticky notepad, 8.5 by 11 paper for taking notes during phone calls and for writing reminders. You want to avoid placing a lot of sticky pieces of paper all over the place. You want to write appointments on the calendar and write notes about things in the notebook so the person can go back and refer to them. You might want to consider purchasing a new telephone. There's a lot of phones that are designed for people with hearing loss and people with visual impairment. Large button phones are also very good for people who have impairments in their fine motor skills, and they might not be able to manipulate small buttons or to use a cell phone. There's also picture phones that are very helpful. You can take a picture of the person and then slide it in. There's like a plastic cover on the button, and you can slide the picture of the person in, or you can write the person's name and then set up memory dial so the person can just push the button of the person that they'd like to call. And that's really helpful for people who have significant memory issues. If this is a memory center, it's also helpful to have medications here. You really want this to be kind of the go-to place. So organizing all of the medications in a clearly labeled pill box, fill it on the same day of every week, so maybe Sunday night, sit down, fill the medication box together for the week. There are medication packs that you can order. The care coordinators can help you order those that have all of the pills portioned out already. That's another option. There's medication boxes that have timers and alarms. So there's an auditory cue as well. I think that medication is something that a lot of people have trouble managing even early on in the disease process, and often will not admit that they have trouble, or they're unaware that they're having trouble. And this is really critical. I've visited members' households and they didn't know what their medications were for, or they clearly had taken some but not all of their medications for that day. And so if you're having trouble organizing your medications or your loved one is, please ask us for help. There's lots of systems that we can put in place to support you with this. And it is critical that you take the medications that you need to take. So please don't feel embarrassed about reaching out to your care coordinator for some help with this. And then this is something else that is important to do, and your care coordinator can help with this as well. Gather all of the important health information for everybody living in the household, individual who has dementia, and if there's a spouse or partner who doesn't have dementia, your information should be in there too. Place it in a red folder, labeled in case of an emergency, and make sure there's a list of medical diagnoses, the medications that you take, your doctor's name, the phone number, allergies, a contact person, list the name and number of somebody who should be contacted if the caregiver of the person is taken ill. Certainly, Kendal at Home's number should be there. Your care coordinator's number should be there. Just a brief personal story. This is really important. My stepfather had dementia for many years, and my mother was his primary caregiver, and she became quite ill, and he left her. He shouldn't have even been driving. He had stopped driving for a number of years. He recognized that she was ill, didn't have the wherewithal to call the emergency services or to call me, and got in the car and left. And so now we have a situation where we had someone in the house passed out on the floor that was almost unconscious, and someone with dementia who had left the house. And it was just by utter happenstance that I stopped by. And so I didn't have his information gathered. I needed to find help for him. I needed to find help for her. There was nothing that was collected. I didn't know, the name of her friend that could come and stay with him after we found him. There was a whole series of events that were very scary that happened around this emergency. And so you have to plan ahead. It's not just about what happens if the person with dementia has to go to the hospital, but what happens if the primary caregiver has to go to the hospital. When emergency services are called, they need to be able to find the information, and there needs to be some kind of backup system in place. And this should be by your memory center as well. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to do this, and it's really worth planning ahead. You just never know what's going to happen. Once you have all of this set up, you are going to need to practice with the person who has memory impairment getting into a new routine. You want to make regular trips to the memory center to read the events that are happening. So you're starting a new behavior, you're starting a new habit, and it's going to take some practice. So you want to create the habit of always checking the memory center. Create the habit of writing down the schedule for the day. If the person asks you what time the dentist appointment is, or when you're leaving to go someplace, or when someone's coming over, don't tell the person the answer. Okay? Instead, you're going to create a new behavior of checking that memory center and say, well, let's go over to the calendar and find out, right? Let's check your list. Let's look at the schedule. Okay, whatever you want to call the memory center, the place. Let's go take a look at it and have the person read the information that they're seeking. If you can do this repeatedly, instead of them asking the question repeatedly, they will learn the habit of checking the center. Things that are helpful, putting an X over the day when it's done to decrease confusion about what day it is. Okay, and you can do that at night before you go to bed together. Okay. If a full calendar is too much, you might just want to have one day, the chores of the day, the events of the day, that might be on the whiteboard. Okay? You might want to leave a simple note about an important topic that you might need to highlight if the person is really asking the question repeatedly. You might want to make one particular bit of information stand out. So you'll have to practice with this and see what works best for you. So I'd like to ask Mandy to talk about her experiences creating memory books. And I just wanted to share with you, memory books were originally created by a dear friend and colleague of ours, Dr. Michelle Bourgeois, who was a professor at Ohio State and then a professor of speech pathology at the University of South Florida. And she created memory books as a way to help people with Alzheimer's disease to be able to have meaningful conversations. And through that, we found all sorts of wonderful benefits to memory books. And she has a book out about memory books. It's called Memory and Communication Aids for People with Dementia. And the publisher of that book is Health Professions Press, and it is on their website. So Mandy, I will turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Jen. And I have that book and I would highly recommend it to everyone. While Jennifer just spoke about creating a memory center that deals with the here and now, all the important information that someone needs to know about their day, I want to talk to you about a beautiful tool of memory books that help capture and hold on to and give us a way to access those long-term memories that we hold dear. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about creating a memory book, and I'll share some examples of some memory books that I've made in my practice. The most important first step of creating a memory book is collecting that personal information. And we want to collect a very thorough, we want to ask ourselves, what are what do we know about the person? What is most dear to them that we want to put into a book and capture? I don't know about you, but one of my favorite pastimes is flipping through my old photo albums or using my smartphone and using the smartphone and flipping through the thousands of photos I have saved on my phone or my computer. Looking at those photos brings me so much joy and so much comfort. That's okay. You can go to the next slide. And it really brings me a lot of comfort. But sometimes the photo albums that we have are just, they don't provide enough structure. There's often too many pictures. There's very few labels. People don't always write what every picture is about. And people living with dementia have trouble sometimes with their words. They have trouble accessing language. And by creating a simple tool that will capture our most dear memories, that is a very, very important thing. So I'm going to walk you through it. There's a template that we will send to people that will just have some basic fill in the blank or ask some basic questions such as, I was born in blank, just to get some information. If the person with dementia can answer these questions and help fill in the blanks, that's the most ideal. If they need a little help and a spouse or a child is able to help fill in the information that we need, then that's okay. But you want to, as much as possible, engage the person living with dementia and get their thoughts and their ideas about what should go in the book. And you want to find out those key things that are important to their life story. The memory book is a reflection of their life story. Okay, so this is an example of a page of a memory book. Every page in the memory book It's very simple. You have a nice large picture that's clear. There's not a lot of other images around. And there's one sentence either at the top or at the bottom describing the picture. So here's another example. I want to say that the memory book should always be written in first person. So you notice it says, we always have a very large garden. It's written about, or it might say, I love to work in the garden, and have that picture there. It should always be written in the first person, because this book can be used for the person to tell their own story, and they're going to read the text. Here, every picture in the memory book should include some text that includes the name and the places. So there we go. It seems like the pictures are moving a little bit on their own. Okay, here we go. This is an example of a typical photo album of someone that I work with. And when I show them these pictures, it's just way too overwhelming. There's too many pictures there. I don't know which one to even focus on. It's too busy. There's no written information. Sometimes I'll take a picture and flip it on the back, because sometimes people will write on the back, but sometimes I can't even read their writing to know what the picture's about. So this may be helpful for, and maybe enjoyable for some people, but it gets very complicated and busy and difficult to focus when someone has dementia. It's much better to have a single photo with a single sentence. So once a memory book is created, it's a beautiful tool to use to facilitate those conversations, especially with family members and caregivers. I can't tell you, it's the number one thing that family members ask me. They say, you know, I love going to visit my mom or dad, but I just don't know how to connect with them anymore. Can you please help me, Mandy? And by creating a memory book, we can put all those beautiful long-term memories and some of the information that Jennifer was just talking about the information center that's important for them to remember, can also be put in the memory book. So you can have the daily schedule, some of their personal preferences. You could put a copy of the safety information in there, like I always need to use my walker, or maybe it's just something that they look forward to doing every day that you want to put in there, like I take the dog for a walk every day, or I take care of the plants every day at 1 o'clock. Memory books will improve the lives of people living with dementia, and they can be used in so many ways. Here's a picture of a woman enjoying the book all on her own. And the previous picture we saw was of partners working together. Memory books are easy to make. Anybody can make them. And you can make them in different sizes, but we recommend starting with just a 3-ring binder with a pocket on the front, so that you can put a picture that they choose on the front. Just use regular size 8.5 by 11 paper. Purchase non-glare page protectors, and get those family photos that are the most meaningful. I usually ask if I can make a color copy of the photos, so that I don't use the real photos in case the book gets lost. And if available, I use a computer to create and store the memory book. These memory books are heavily used, and they often, will get misplaced, or a family member will want another copy of the memory book. And if you have it stored in your computer, then it's very easy to access it and just print another copy. Also, the memory books, if they're in a computer and you want to make an edit or change something, you can easily do that on the computer. But if you don't have a computer, it's not required. You can still make a memory book by using family photos and by using the magic marker and writing very clearly one simple sentence or statement on each page. So you don't need a computer or need to be very computer savvy to put together this beautiful memory tool. Once you have this memory tool, it's beautiful. I'm going to show you in a few minutes a video of someone using a memory book, but you want to invite the person. You could say something like, you know, Mary, I would really like to talk with you today. Would you mind if I sat beside you? Would you please read me your story? It's very important to invite the person. And then you'll gently guide the conversation by commenting on the photos that you see in the book. You might say, "Oh, that's such a beautiful dog." And the person will read, "This is my favorite dog, Lucy." And you never want to use the book as something that you want to quiz them. You don't want to cover up the text and say, "Now, what's the name of your dog again?" That's not what this is for. This is not a test. It's an opportunity to create meaningful engagement together. It's an opportunity to have a conversation about things that are really, really important to the individual. If the person seems to kind of go off topic, it's okay. You can just easily redirect them back to the topic just gently by commenting on the picture that you see there. Again, this is not a quiz. It's not a test. It should be enjoyable. Don't worry if the person says the word wrong. Come with genuine interest, even if you've read the book with the person, 10 times already. Come with interest and excitement to read the memory book and use it as a tool to have a conversation with the person. And please, please do not quiz them. It will just make them anxious. It'll make them upset. It's not going to be an enjoyable. Just think about when you are quizzed on something, it kind of gets you all worked up. That's the opposite of what we want to use memory books for. If they read something wrong, don't correct them. Okay. If they say, "Oh, that's Billy playing baseball," you don't have to say, "Well, it's actually Jason," because that's going to make the person feel really bad. But you can say something like, "Wow, I bet you playing baseball is a lot of fun. He looks like he's really enjoying it." Okay, because it really doesn't matter in that moment if the person's called Billy or Jason, but hopefully with the text there, it's going to help them more often than not remember the name of their grandson, Jason. But if they don't, it's okay. So here's an example of my mother-in-law that, and I'm gonna tell you about this for a minute. I made a memory book for her. She was living with dementia. Sadly, she just passed away a couple weeks ago. But I made a memory book for her when I noticed that she wasn't participating in conversations as much. She kind of sat around with a blank stare while everybody else at family gatherings were talking to each other. And she just kind of was there. She wasn't participating anymore. And it made me really sad. And so I worked with her to gather information about her personal history, about those long-term memories, about her mother, about her father, about her siblings, about what it was like growing up for her when she was a little girl. And I created a very simple book with her. And I'm going to show you a video. And again, this is my mother-in-law who had very little language and was very withdrawn from the rest of the family. The children you see in the middle picture, my daughter, I think maybe she was 9 at the time, they said, "We don't know what to say to Mom anymore." Because when she would talk to them, she would use very empty language. She'd say, how you doing, doll? And she'd give them a hug or hold their hand, which was beautiful, but that was about it. So when I gave this memory tool to her, and the video you're going to see is of her seeing it for the very first time. So hopefully Jennifer will be able to start this video. I don't know if you can hear her, but she's reading the text of the memory book. And if you look at her face, she's smiling. She doesn't just have that blank look on her face. She's clearly very engaged. So what she just read, and we can stop the video because it's a little hard to hear, but what I wanted to say was she was just reading about her mother. And I forget what the sentence said. It must say she was a wonderful mother. And she added an extra comment, what wasn't written there, which is huge for her because the fact that she was even reading this was huge because she used so little language at this point. But she added an extra sentence saying that can't be emphasized enough when talking about her mother. So, and almost every time that I read this memory book with her, she added that extra little comment. And this was just a beautiful opportunity to not just for me as her daughter-in-law to connect with her, but for my children when they visited to either read the book to Mom or have Mom tell them her story. And my mother-in-law had short-term memory loss, so she would read this book over and over again. And every time she never got bored of it because it was all about things that are important to her. And every time she read it, it was like she was reading it the first time. And we brought this book wherever she went because it made her happy. So one of the nice things about having a memory book in a 3-ring binder is that if a page is not connecting, if the person's not connecting with a particular page, or worse yet, if it upsets them, sometimes it's hard to predict how someone's going to react. You can just take that page out, or you can add something in. Like, let's say my mother-in-law, let's say she had a brand new caregiver that was coming to the house every other day to give her a bath and get her washed up. Rather than be scared when she saw a face that was not familiar, you could have a page in the memory book that says, Marla comes to give me a bath every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And that can be reviewed and it can be shown to her before she comes. So it brings a sense of comfort. It's a beautiful tool for connecting families. So I also just want to say that memory books also they're this beautiful portal into parts of the lives of people that we sometimes don't even know. When I think about, I met my husband when I was in my 20s, but I don't know so much about what his life was like, when he was a young boy. And but yet, I can imagine that those memories are very, very dear to them. Sometimes when we're creating a memory book, we focus on the memories of the here and now. We want family members to remember the names of our great grandchildren. And although that's important and we all enjoy being grandparents and great grandparents, the memories that we can access the easiest and the ones that we hold on to the most are the ones from our long-term memories. And we want to start with those in the book. We want to put in a story. We want to create this story of our life that starts back with what it was like growing up, memories of our mother, memories of our father, memories of growing up on a farm or what school we went to. And this will help you create a tool that will be very meaningful and that will be treasured. And it's really important that you start with those long-term memories. So let's talk about what you actually put in the memory book. When you make your memory book, Jennifer. Okay, we're coming back. Great. So when you make your memory book, I want you to make the book with the person and also capture those frequently asked questions that are asked on a regular basis. And then and make sure that you put the answer in there, like in the example that I was saying about someone who's coming to help wash my mother-in-law, so that that's important daily information, as well as capturing all those memories. Also put in safety information that they will need to remember. And you'll see that these memory books will be treasured for years and years to come. And some of my clients will say, I want to pass this down to my grandchildren. And they love reading the memory books on their own. They love reading memory books with a partner, with their spouse, with family members, and also with caregivers. We have to remember that often when caregivers are hired, they don't know very much about the person. And a memory book is a portal into the person's life and helps them tell their own story. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to discuss memory books with you. And Jennifer and I will open up some time for any questions that you might have.
I have to apologize about the slides that kept moving. They were moving on their own. And so I was struggling I'm not sure what happened to the PowerPoint presentation, but things started jumping around by itself. So we're happy to take any questions that you might have about memory or memory centers or memory books, or how you could get started making one with a loved one. We have templates that we can make available to any of you. Just let your care coordinator know or reach out to me and I can email any of you a template. And then you did get a handout also about creating a memory center in your home that was sent out earlier. So any questions? Yeah, a memory book is good for anybody. You don't have to have dementia to enjoy having a memory book. It's a fun project. You know, everybody on my team has their own memory book, and we love when we work with new care communities and new elders to be able to share that. It was my understanding that the handout went out. If it didn't, I'll check with Marla and Sue and make sure that everybody has the handout.
Marla, I did not.
Thank you both.
I didn't
ahead,
get the
Sue.
handout to send out, but if you want to send it over to me, I will make sure everyone on the call today does get a copy of it.
Okay. All right.
Maybe we could put it in the member resource center as well, Sue, so people could access it at any time, and we can reference that obviously in this video. But thank you both. I always, when I talk with Jennifer about dementia, I always feel like, as people transition through this disease, it's such a loss. But to me, things like this give you some connection, and just seeing you with your mother-in-law, and what that must do to be able to reconnect in some way, and maybe in ways that you never even knew her throughout her life. It's just kind of gives you some hope of being able to still connect and reach that. It's one of the most difficult things, I think, is, and as you said, for caregivers coming in who never knew this person, in all their amazing life, and come in at a point, where it's really hard to engage. That just gives you such incredible tools, I think.
We could, Sue, when I send you the handout, we could share the template at that time too. So
Perfect.
Then anybody that wants access to it could have it. And I see that Alexander has a general question about the TV and people with dementia. So first of all, let me preface this by saying you're asking this of somebody who doesn't really like watching TV to begin with. We got rid of all of our cable and network TV 15 years ago. So, the TV is probably on maybe for 3 hours a week in its entire, if that much in our house. So, I think that the TV can be very confusing for people with dementia. It can be scary. Sometimes they don't understand what's going on, especially if it's something that's violent. I can't tell you how many times I've gone into people's homes and there's been a talk show on where people have been yelling at each other and the person with dementia is getting upset and doesn't know what's going on. On the other hand, some people love watching old musicals. Some people are old movie buffs. Some people have a favorite show that they really connect with and really enjoy. And that's what person-centered care is all about. And that's what we really focus on at Kendal at Home is person-directed, person-centered care. And so I think that we need to make sure that we don't just make these judgments that rule out something or say something is bad for everybody. We have to look at it at a person-to-person, on a person-to-person basis. And if the person is confused, and they're not getting anything out of watching the TV, they shouldn't be watching it. Also, people in general watch too much TV and don't get enough physical exercise. And we shouldn't use the television as a replacement for personal communication, for exercise, as a way of keeping somebody occupied. There are a lot better ways that people could spend their time that are meaningful and purposeful than watching television. So that's my 2 cents.
Whether we have dementia or not.
That's right. Yep. Get off your butts and exercise and do something with purpose and don't watch so much TV. It is, yes, it is there. I'm looking at your comment right now, and it is a resource. And there's good things on TV. There's interesting things on TV. I think you just have to make good choices about it.
I just wanted to add just one little thing about memory books, that it's not just limited. Memory books are not just limited to personal photos. If someone has a special recipe or that you want to put in the book, or maybe a favorite hymn that they love to sing every day, or a special prayer, or a newspaper clipping, it really can be about, it really has to be person-centered, all about that person. So whatever's going to make that person smile, engage, and help tell their story, that's what we want to put in that memory book. If they say the same story over and over and over again, and you've heard it for the 100th time, I want that story in the memory book because that's important to them. That's why they're saying it all the time. So I just wanted to throw that in too.
Thank you both. Are there any more? Does putting a memory book on an iPad have any merits? Oh, that would definitely work, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, as long as the person has access to the iPad and is able to use the iPad independently. You don't want the person always to have to rely on someone else to be able to have access to the memory book. You want them to be able to pick that up and go through it and read it and look at it at any time.
You know, that could be one of those ways of bringing the TV back into it as well, because you could, cast it. If you have a smart TV, you can always cast it. And if someone has any vision impairment, they'd be able to see it on a big screen. But I would also think it's a way, so much of what our interactions are today are remote and through Zoom like this. And if you had it in an electronic portal like an iPad or something, probably a way that families could share that even when they're not sitting on the couch together next to one another having a conversation. That electronic mechanism would make it possible for both parties to share in a meaningful way, probably.
Absolutely.
They also have digital photo frames, and you can load hundreds of pictures on a digital photo frame and have it cycle through. And what we did for my mother-in-law is we made the cycle very slow. So each picture was up for a long time. And then there's a function that you can make a label so that the picture comes up, but then you can put a sentence or a few short words or the person's name right there, so that when she would see a picture, it would let her know who the picture was of. And that was helpful. That was something that she liked a lot. You know, we want, the nice thing about the memory book is that it enhances conversation and connection. And so we want to try and continue those personal connections with people. And yes, Sue, having some short videos on the iPad is nice as well. That was a good comment. That's something that you can't have in a memory book, and people certainly do enjoy watching videos. So lots of really good ideas. I'm excited for all of you to start making some memory books. And we'll definitely make sure that you get the resources for that. Any other comments or questions? Our next brain health series is going to be about music and all of the wonderful benefits for the brain that with regard to music. And we'll have a guest next time as well. We'll have a music therapist with us who will not only talk about the benefits of music, but I'm hoping to get her to do a little music therapy session with us while she's joining us. So that will be fun.
And
That sounds like fun.
that registration is live already on our member resource portal. So anyone who wants to sign up for that can sign up for that now.
Great.
Also, I just want to put in a plug for next Friday's coffee hour. Is it next Friday, Sue? It is next Friday, right? It is February 12th, next Friday at 11 a.m. We have a special guest who's going to be joining us, Tom Daly, who used to be a curator at the Rockwell Museum. And I had a chance to meet with him last night and talk with him. And I hope you'll join us. He's going to be sharing quite a few of the Rockwell paintings. But what he did was just bring them to life and share stories and just some really incredible stories. So I'm really excited about it. I hope that you'll join and spread the word, because I think he'll be a great guest, and it'll fit right into Black History Month. And he's really selected some really moving work that was done by Rockwell. So please join us next Friday at 11 if you can to share that experience with him. I think we'll invite him back for a series of talks as well. He was really fascinating and really brought to life some of the history behind these paintings and the impact they had in our country. So, but Jen and Mandy, thank you so much for sharing with us today. These memory books to me are one of the most important things I think we can do. And I appreciate you sharing your personal stories with us too about it. So, and thanks everyone for joining us. We hope you have a great weekend. Stay warm and go Chiefs.